Biden and congressional leaders failed to resolve debt ceiling impasse. President Joe Biden and congressional leaders met on Tuesday to try to resolve the impending default crisis but failed to reach a consensus. The impasse between the Democrats and Republicans remains, with both sides accusing each other of being unreasonable. Republicans want to link spending cuts with an increase in the debt ceiling, while Democrats and the White House said that such plans would slash critical social services. With the Treasury Department saying the government will run out of money as soon as June 1st unless Congress raises its borrowing limit, Biden and McCarthy have precious little time to overcome the impasse. No new movement in the meeting. As they emerged from the meeting, both sides reiterated the positions they were at, and there was no new movement. Republican House Speaker Kevin McCarthy of California told reporters that he didn't see any new movement in the meeting. On the other hand, Democratic Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer of New York accused Speaker McCarthy of endangering America and making it much harder to make progress on budget negotiations by not taking default off the table. Solution lies between the one person in America who can sign a bill into law and the Speaker of the House. Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell of Kentucky promised there would be a solution in time. He said, "The United States is not going to default. It never has and it never will." He added that the solution lies between the one person in America who can sign a bill into law and the Speaker of the House. Even though the two leaders are currently at an impasse, the fact that they are sitting together and discussing the issue is a major step forward. Both sides agree that a resolution is essential to avoid the unprecedented economic calamity of a default. Staffers for both sides will continue talking before the leaders meet again. Staffers for both sides will continue talking before the leaders meet again on Friday. Biden has said that he is open to separately discussing the spending cuts Republicans are seeking as part of the budget process, but he is not willing to negotiate over the debt ceiling itself. To raise the debt ceiling, the president will need support not only from McCarthy's House Republicans, but also from at least some Senate Republicans and potentially McConnell to secure the 60 votes necessary to overcome a filibuster in the Senate. No alternative to Congress raising the debt ceiling. Both sides have said that there is no alternative to Congress raising the debt ceiling and Biden signing it into law. The White House is not interested in trying to use the 14th Amendment in a novel way to circumvent the debt ceiling, as some liberal legal scholars have suggested. Both sides have ruled out a short-term fix to the standoff, though that could always change as the deadline looms. Republicans trying to use the threat of a default as leverage. Republicans, as they did during the Obama administration in 2011 and 2013, are trying to use the threat of a default as leverage to force the Democratic-controlled Senate and the president to acquiesce to spending cuts. The Republican-controlled House last month passed a bill to raise the debt limit that amounted to a wish list of spending cuts and other policy, but GOP lawmakers have privately acknowledged that the bill was more about trying to strengthen their negotiating position than about creating legislation that could pass into law. Options that McCarthy has ruled out may come back on the table. If things come down to the wire, options that McCarthy has ruled out may come back on the table, according to a source familiar with the discussions. A bipartisan discharge petition is one of those options. However, the source said that it's not going to be pretty at the end of the day, and McCarthy seems to have few good options, and anything could happen. Americans divided over whom they would blame. Americans were divided over whom they would blame if the government defaults on its debt, with independent voters somewhat more likely to blame congressional Republicans than Biden. The White House and Democratic super PACs have been putting pressure on moderate Republicans and battleground districts in hope of getting them to back down. Biden will travel on Wednesday to New York's Hudson Valley to demand that Congress raise the debt ceiling without conditions and to trash the GOP spending cut bill, which the White House said would cut services for veterans, teachers, and others. Biden appears collegial in calling the four leaders of both parties into the Oval Office. The fact that the meeting between Biden and congressional leaders is happening at all works in Biden's favor. In a period of raw partisanship, he appears collegial in calling the four leaders of both parties into the Oval Office to hash out differences, said Joe Walsh, a former Republican House member who represented an Illinois district in the House for 12 years. Biden's message is ultimately the more reasonable one, amounting to, "Come on, let's pay our bills before we talk about spending cuts." That's a notion that will resonate with the American people. Team Biden believes they're in better shape politically, and having this meeting makes Biden look better. In conclusion, the impasse between Democrats and Republicans persists even after Biden and congressional leaders meeting. Both sides accuse each other of being unreasonable. With the government running out of money as soon as June 1st, it is imperative that they reach a consensus before that. Republicans want to link spending cuts with an increase in the debt ceiling, while Democrats and the White House oppose such plans as they would slash critical social services. Both sides have said that there is no alternative to Congress raising the debt ceiling and Biden signing it into law. The fact that both leaders are sitting together and discussing the issue is a major step forward, and both sides agree that a resolution is essential to avoid the unprecedented economic calamity of a default.